What I like to do is start this meeting talking a little bit about the idea I had for a book. And the only reason why I wouldn't write this book is because of the extreme backlash I would get from other piano technicians. So the topic of this book would be, what do you need to know to be a piano technician? And here are some of the things that you need to know that you will not learn anywhere. For example, I was doing some research on how to build a piano tuning business by hiring other technicians. I talked to this one guy who's very close to retirement, and he's sending these technicians out into the world to tune for him. So I asked him, do you ever worry about what kind of tunings these guys are doing? And he said, yeah, I do. And then I said, what kind of complaints do you get from your customers? And he said, you know what? I really thought, because these guys hadn't been training for very long at all. He said, I really thought that people would be complaining about their tunings because they're young and their tunings aren't great. And I really thought that's what people would be complaining about. But they're not. They're complaining about things like there's a note that makes noise that wasn't there before, or mechanical things. They're not complaining about the tuning. So what this means, and it's not shared, I've never heard anybody talk about it, but the truth is, from the studies that we've done and the research we've done to try and to start this company, people can't tell. The vast majority of your customers have no idea whatsoever if their piano is in tune or not. What that means is that people who want to have a career tuning pianos, being afraid that you won't be good enough is not a reason. For about 80% of my customers, I'm the one that cares about the tuning. They don't. They care about me being on time. They care about me looking okay. They care about me responding quickly to their requests. They don't even care about getting an early tuning. Some people do, but most don't. Most people are happy to wait a month to get a tuning. So having said all that, the main idea that I wanted to put out there is that you shouldn't be afraid. And the other thing that you hear people say is, you're going to destroy your piano. I've never, in the 25 years I've been tuning, have never come upon a piano that was destroyed. So it was out of tune, right? Somebody tried to tune their own piano, it was out of tune. Okay, so that's not destroying the piano. The topic of this little rant is that if you want to learn how to tune pianos and you want to be a piano tuner, you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't think I'm not good enough. Having said that, I do believe we have some piano technicians here, people who have tuned. I know Mitya, by the way, Mitya down here is one of my students from Slovenia. Is that right? Slovenia. So he actually tunes in a dealership. He tunes for a very well-known piano dealership. And there might be some other people out there who actually tune. I think Dwayne, I don't know if you're a tuner or not. But anyways, if people want to chime in on that topic about what kind of things should beginners not worry about? Anybody want to make a suggestion? Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, I'm just starting out. I'm within a month of starting out with pianos, and I tuned a couple of unisons this week. And what I'm worried about is increasing speed of tuning, accuracy, increasing speed. Listening to unisons, I've been thinking about that all week and utilizing the information that you were telling me about. So I'm listening to unisons and I'm thinking, what's acceptable with a unison? Not concert level, like someone's house and they have an upright piano. What's acceptable as far as a unison, as far as the pulsations? What would be acceptable for just a plain old home piano?
Okay, I think that's an excellent topic. Let's talk about that right after we talk about this idea, which is what beginners should worry about, because I want to talk about the environment of what beginners are getting. So if there's no piano tuners who want to share with us what they think, I would like to hear from you with respect to the kinds of responses you've gotten from other piano technicians when you've mentioned to them that you would like to learn how to tune pianos. I know you were trying to.
Thanks. I'm not a pianist. I like developing my brain and developing different skills in life, and one of these is piano. What motivated it? I had a piano. There was nothing wrong with stability, was fine, but every time it came, I played a succession of octaves, and the octaves never sounded quite right. Before I discovered your videos, I was aware of piano, the harmonics and a stretch, and so I said, I feel like the upper octaves are getting too wide at the top, and he said, I'll do it with less stretch, and it still doesn't sound quite right. I'm trying to develop some hammer technique. I've learnt all the theory, I've done all your quizzes. I understand coincident partials, check notes and things, but I wanted up some hammer techniques, so I downloaded the piano meter, and you play all the notes and it produces a curve. Now, is that curve, that Railsback, a generic one, or does it produce a specific one for the...
It's a specific one for the piano.
The one thing I complained about as a customer was the octaves didn't sound right. But that's
Yeah.
just...
So as far as stretch goes, now you're talking about like octaves in a fifth, double octaves, triple octaves. That's where your stretch comes in. But an octave should sound clean. It doesn't matter where it is. In the bass, it's a little harder to get it clean. But yeah, so unisons...
They didn't sound too bad when you
Yeah.
played the octave together, but if you played octaves going great
Yeah.
at the piano in octaves, the gaps didn't sound quite
Yeah.
right to my ear,
So-
but maybe I have damaged ears from doing dentistry.
The upper octaves are the most difficult to tune. And that's where you will get fired for unisons and octaves. I did a tuning for an international concert pianist, and when I was done, just beelined it right to the treble and started playing octaves. Not good enough, not good enough. Because it's the hardest. So unisons are important, and octaves are nothing more than unisons. And unisons are nothing more than octaves. So they're hard. The treble octaves are hard. Is there anybody else wants to share with us their experience of asking another piano technician to help them learn how to tune pianos? Go ahead, Dwayne.
Okay, I was amazed when I walked into the place I went and I said, I've been thinking about tuning pianos and how would I learn to do that? And he says, come right in and do it, because I was in a different industry. You didn't help anyone within 400 miles of you because you wanted the account. And so I worked on his showroom floor and did some things with his older uprights and whatnot. He said, you're good enough, go. And I did it, and I was way underpriced. And I've since raised my prices to be competitive within our market, and I am finding that I'm not losing as many tunings, and I'm getting better clientele who actually want to take care of their pianos. But early on, I did tune a grand, and I got finished tuning, and he came out, and he started playing that thing, and I'm going, oh, Lord, it's going to be gone, and I'll never be back here. And I was right. Since then, I've concentrated, besides the octaves first, you've got to have the unisons and the octaves and then the stability. And after a few years, I was tuning for the music societies and people that wanted their piano to stay in tune.
Awesome.
But early on, I think you're right. If you're tuning for just the family household people, they don't know what's in tune. They don't know what isn't. You walk in the house, the piano hasn't been tuned for 10 years. The kid's already been playing it for a couple of years. And they said, our piano teacher says you might want to tune the piano. Otherwise, they would have just left it.
Yeah. Having said that, there are those people, but I'm of the mind that if you want to be successful, you do have to learn how to do very high-level tunings. A lot of people say my tunings are good enough, but I want my tunings to be good enough for Elton John if he comes to town. Because I did get the call that Michel Legrand was coming to town. So I tuned for him. He played with Miles Davis. He was prolific writing score music. He's an amazing jazz pianist. And after the concert, I said to the manager, is he okay? Was he happy? He says he was very happy with the tuning. So that meant a lot to me. So this is my philosophy. Yes, you can do tunings without being good, but you have to be ready to be embarrassed. But if you want to have a successful career, then you need to have those few people that will rave about you, those high-level musicians and pianists that you can tune for and make happy, because they will be the ones to rave for you. So there's the two sides of the coin. Now, for Amy, you said, how good do the unisons have to be? And how can I get my tuning faster? Those are great questions. The answer to those questions is your unisons will only be as good as you can make them. Therefore, do not try to make them better. That's what causes people to be spending 4 hours tuning a piano. You hear the unison, it's not good. You spend another 5 minutes trying to get it good, and it's not much better. So you just have to accept that your unisons aren't going to be good and tune the piano with the bad unisons. And be comforted by the thought that this tuning is not that good. I can hear the unisons are suffering, but I can hear it. I know the unisons aren't good. And that will be the beginning of your path towards getting good unisons, while at the same time tuning fast. So another thing that I heard said once, and I believe it, is that you could spend 3 hours on a tuning, or you could spend an hour on a tuning. The 3-hour tuning will not be better than the hour tuning, because you are only as good as you are right now. And you try to spend more time to improve your tuning, you won't be able to, because you're not that good. You're not good enough to do it better.
I see. And how might I be able to get better over time?
You can do it over time, But this is the totally most inefficient way. It's the tune 1,000 pianos mindset. Yeah, sure, you can do anything better if you take forever to learn how to do it, but there's no guarantee. For example, unisons. You can say, oh, I'm just going to tune. After 20 years, how are my unisons? They're better, but they could be a lot better. That's because you're using that trial and error approach. And what I have found is that feedback, and not just like feedback from another technician who says, oh, your unisons need to be better. No, this is not quality feedback. The quality feedback that we use at the school is simple. When it comes to unisons, for example, filtering out the partials, that's it. You filter out the partials. If all the partials go, bah, that's a pure unison. But if they're going, bah, oh, whether you can hear it or not, you can see it, it's not good enough. And that feedback is what gets you to be better. Let me show you here what I'm talking about. You get better with quality feedback.
And one way you can get that is using a device.
Depending on how you use it. You have to use it the right way, though. So here's how we do it. Here, I've had piano technicians, people who have taken my course. I have a YouTube video of an interview with a student and a concert technician who evaluated him after 21 weeks. And the concert technician said, I'm going to use this guy when I am not available. This guy is so good, his tunings are so good, if I can't do a concert tuning, I'm going to use this guy. He was just tuning for 21 weeks. That's because his tunings were so good. And the reason why he got good is because of this loop right here. This is what we do. So you make a judgment by ear, and that's what all people do. For example, unisons. You tune a unison, and then you're done. This is not what we do in the school. We keep going. We use the technology or another method to get quality feedback. So you can use Ocean Audio, you can use the Mark Serzan tuning system, you can use something that gives you quality, consistent, objective feedback. And then, this is the most important part, you have to confirm by ear. So, for example, tuning unisons. You want to get better? This is how you do it. Tune some unisons until you think they're good. Then use, for example, Ocean Audio to filter all the unisons. There's other techniques you can use, a single string test, pair compare, listen for the word. There's all kinds of different things you can do that can give you feedback on whether this is good or not. But let's say you use Ocean Audio in a practice setting. We don't use Ocean Audio, which is an audio program that allows you to filter out the frequencies. To tune a piano, we just use it to practice. And students use it to get feedback, and I use it to mark their recordings when they send me in the recordings. So you tune a unison, you think it's good, then you filter the partials, and the third partial is beating. At that point, you can hear it. It's filtered. It's going, okay, I can hear that. Now you have to listen to the unison again, and this time confirm that you can hear that third partial beating. So you do that a bunch of times, and then after, a couple of months, you tune a unison, you think it's good, you use Ocean Audio on the partials, and all the partials are beatless. And you give yourself a pat in the back, and you go, yeah, all right. And you do that for another couple of months, and after a while you get tired. You're like, why do I need to use Ocean Audio on this unison? Like the last 100 times I checked the unisons, they were fine. I guess I don't need to use it anymore. And that's how you get to the point where you can make a judgment by ear and stop. But you have to do the circle first, and you have to start at the beginning, which is getting that feedback that you're not good enough, and then confirming by ear. And I'll tell you, a lot of people don't want to do that. My unisons are good enough. None of my customers complain. That's a comment I've heard from people. None of my customers complain. It's not delusional. Could be accurate because none of their customers complain, because customers don't complain. Piano tuning customers don't complain because what are they going to say? They don't even know anything about piano tuning. All they know is they're not happy, there was something wrong with the tuning. They're not going to go talk to a tuner, and it's a good thing they don't. Because my business partner, who I'm working with trying to create this app, the reason why he reached out to me is because he had his piano tuned and he wasn't happy with it. So he asked the guy, he said, I think there's something wrong with my piano tuning. And the guy freaked out at him. He said, there's nothing wrong with the piano tuning. It's you. It's your piano. It's this room. You move the piano. Like he just came up with all kinds. So of course, customers don't want to complain because they got a feeling that so they just get another one. So yeah, no piano tuner has customers who will complain, because why would they keep coming back to the guy if they complain? Taylor?
Yes.
Mark, I had a question just because as I've been tuning some ones that have never been tuned, and obviously I see like problems with the regulation and the voicing and things like that. And so I'm wondering, like, in terms of like really making a career out of this, is it more important to start with the tuning, or are all the other factors about things that could be broken with the piano, or the regulation and voicing more important, do you think?
I would say when you start out, you're going to get people who they're lower level customers.
Right.
So they're calling you because this piano was left in my house, or I've had it since I was a kid. I've never had it tuned, but my kids now want to take lessons. So that lower level quality customer, you're going to have, first of all, they're not going to be able to tell it's in tune because they're not musicians or not pianists, or they would have been tuning their piano. But secondly, you would need to get that piano to work. So you come to that piano, and when it comes to regulation, there's a spectrum, right? So you've got over here, the regulation is great and it sounds good and it feels good. Then as it deteriorates, it starts to not respond so well, but they don't notice. Now the argument is, if you're a good salesperson, you can convince them, and you should be able to convince them, that if they have children taking lessons, they need to have it up here. But the fact of the matter is, some of them won't even do that. However, once it gets down here, it actually stops working. So if you got blocking of strings or burbling, and then it's just not working anymore. And that's when they call you. So when it comes to those early customers, when you get the call and they say, there's a squeak in the pedal, can you come and tune my piano? They want you to fix the squeak. You're just throwing in the tuning. Fix the squeaky pedal, $180. And I include a tuning with that. You have to keep that in mind. That's why they called you. They probably won't call you back again until something else breaks. So to answer your question, definitely you need to be able to repair and regulate pianos to the point that it's working. And also, you need to be able to figure out and realize when somebody calls you and you should not be working on their piano. If you're starting out, if somebody says to you, I want you to come and voice my piano, I've got a budget of about $2,000 for that. You can't say, oh, 2,000, I'm going to make 2,000. No, not unless you know a lot about voicing. What you should be saying is, you know what? Don Cote, he tunes at the National Arts Center. That's the guy I need to call. So you have to know what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing, because you will get a bad reputation. Now, I started off by saying you don't need to be a good tuner to get into this business. However, if you get into this business and you're not a good tuner, you will have a really hard time changing that opinion. There will be a lot of people, you'll tune their piano once and they won't get you again, and they will tell their friends, and you might get good. 2 years later, 3 years later, you're pretty good, but they won't go back to you until they hear that you're tuning at the local concert hall, for example. Any other questions about that? Generally, we're talking about how to start a business right now.
Yeah, that was a good time to bring this up. Yeah. And you have a course for regulation and repair as well.
So on my website, I have recordings. For 1.5 years, David was here. David was part of that repair and regulation course, and we recorded everything. So David, can you just give people a little bit of a review of, I can go to the bathroom if you want me to step out of the room. Just give me a review of what we did and how, was it useful? Was it productive? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, I remember you had 3 categories for what's regulation. One is the green area where this is acceptable. Then you had a yellow area where it's acceptable as long as you can explain to the customer why they're having problems with the note that sticks and everything else. And then there's the red area where only another person in the piano world would know what you're talking about. What I'm seeing, tuning is the bread and butter of what you're going to be doing. And then you have regulation, repair, and maybe voicing once you get good at those things. But those are the 4 main things. The regulation course, you went through everything like hammer sticking. Later on, you got into replacing hammers. So the regulation part is really good because you begin to understand how the piano works as a whole, and one thing that can cause another thing to go wrong. If you know how to zone in and correct those little things, you're going to make the piano sound better, and that's what the customer understands. It sounds better and it works better, and that's the main part of it. The course that you have on there is pretty good. I still refer to it once in a while.
So we did about 60 classes, and we talked about everything. I didn't think it would go that long, but you guys kept having questions. We got into refinishing casework and all kinds of stuff. because you had questions
Yeah,
about
and
it.
brought up the subject of a birdcage action, and I haven't come across any of those, but yeah, it's interesting because I really learned from other people that were in your class of what's going on. But yeah, the course is good.
If you want, send me an email or a message, and I will give you access to a couple of those recorded classes. I can show you. Let's go to it right now and you can see. So we go here, log in. I'll use this account. That will view all the classes. Go to the bottom here. Here's the regulation repair. So we have some lessons on regulation invoicing, some on the regulation triangle, which is a concept that I developed to help people understand the relationship between blow, let off, and key dip, and aftertouch. Then we have some piano repair videos there, like how to replace a whole set of hammers, how to replace key tops. And here are the repair and regulation classes. So I have somebody who is going through and helping me edit all of these classes. There's about 60, and we're up to about 10 now. So what you do, for example, if we're talking about traveling hammers, right? This is the class on traveling hammers. There's David right there. And it's edited, so it's not...
We're going to put the paper notes there. Number one, you just noticed it, right? Like you weren't looking for it. There's your hammers. There's something like this. Okay, so there's your hammers, and you move them. And as you move them, you can see them move. But if you have a hammer problem, you're going to see your hammer problem easily. See that?
Right.
You've got your center pin going through the flange. We're going to put the paper on the left side or the right side.
So we go through and talk all about that. Then if you want to take the quiz, you click on the quiz. It brings you to this site, which is a different website, and you just need to register for this. If you're already registered, you log in. Once you logged in, you can find the quiz by clicking on quizzes, or you can just click that quiz button again, and this time it should it'll put you in there. But if you, like, I'm already logged in. I know I'm logged in, right? I just logged in. But this is a bug. So if you're logged in but you can't access, just reload. So once you reload it, there you go. Boom, we're fine. So now you can go to, it's class number 5. There it is. You can click on it, class number 5. And there's all the questions. You can retake it. So when hammers travel right or left, then we put traveling paper in to fix it. So a grand hammer goes up and it's going to the left. The flange is on top of the rail, so you need to put the paper on the left. I don't know if it'll give me the answer or not. Let's see if we go down here, submit the answers. I guess you have to answer them all. Once you answer them all, you get all the answers here. There you go. Here's all the answers. So we're talking about lost motion, all the different ways of checking for lost motion. You can pull back on the hammer rest rail and see if the hammer moves. You can press the key slightly and line up the back check with the catcher. You can trip the jack to see if it resets, or all of the above. And the answer is all of the above. All of those will tell you if you have enough lost motion. So if you want access to a couple of these classes, just send me an email and I'll set it up for you, just so you can get an idea of how it works. So we're talking about starting a business. Taylor helped us understand that you do really need to be able to fix basic things, like repairing a broken hammer shank, repairing a broken key. That's the kind of stuff you're going to get if somebody hasn't used their piano for years and they call you up, or they moved into a house and there's a piano in the basement. That's the kind of stuff that could be wrong with the piano.
The thing that I keep noticing is hammers not hitting all the strings at the same time.
So hammers not hitting all 3 strings at the same time. Okay, so that's going to produce a sound.
Beating.
And that's hammer mating. And I would put that as not critical for the customer because they can't hear that stuff. However, if you want to put the piano in its best shape, you need to fix that. Definitely, yeah. Because it also makes it hard to tune a clean unison.
That's what I was getting. Yeah, it makes it hard to tune. So it's like, how can I tune if I can't hear the unison properly?
Yeah. So I have something on my website. You look up the arrogant piano technician. I'll just explain it to you. The arrogant piano technician. The place where being an arrogant piano technician is very helpful and actually appropriate and useful is when you're tuning unisons. Because if you're serious about tuning and you have some good training, you're going to get fairly good at tuning unisons because you realize how important they are and the training is telling you how to get good unisons. So you're going to be pretty good at it. And then you have this experience where you can't tune a unison for whatever reason. You're trying to tune a unison and you can't get it to sound clean. So in my analogy of that is the piano trying to gaslight you. The piano is saying to you, you can't tune this unison, can you? Then you know why you can't tune this unison? Because really, you're not a very good piano tuner. So this is the piano trying to gaslight you. And that's where you become arrogant. And you say, what? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm a fine piano technician. You're the problem. So that's when you go and you look for false beats. You look for inharmony mismatch, because some strings are not the same diameter, or hammer mating. Those are all possible reasons why you might be having trouble tuning a unison. And what's really interesting is that we have Tom here, and I tell this story a lot about a student that I had, and he's a student. So we were tuning unison. He was having trouble tuning unison. I said, we got to measure the diameter of the string. He measured the diameter. And you want to tell the story, Tom?
Oh, you're doing great. It's because the guy that did this, I had a string break is what happened. And he replaced the string for me. He was a Steinway certified tuner. He's done a lot of good stuff. But then we're tuning it. I took your courses and I couldn't get the unison.
And I said, measure the string. And
it was the wrong size. He put the wrong size string.
So how did he know what size string to put on?
It was marked in the piano. Some decals were in there. He just looked at the decal and said, oh, it must be that, so I'll put one in.
He didn't measure the other
He
string.
didn't measure.
Yeah.
He took the shortcut.
So if you're replacing strings, always remember, don't look at the plate. Measure the string to make sure that you replace it with the same diameter. If you don't, they will not have the same inharmonicity, and you will not be able to line up the partials, and the unison will never sound clean. Any other questions? Go ahead, Jared.
With the string diameter, is that because mechanically different strings, different diameters take different tension?
What it has to do is inharmonicity is the fact that the higher partials of a string are not harmonic. They're not in tune with the fundamentals. So if you have a string at 100 hertz, the harmonics would be 200, 300, 400, 500. But we don't call them harmonics because they're not in harmony. We call them partials. So you would have 100, 202, 306, 404. They're all sharp. And that's why when you have a note like A4, all the notes above A4 are tuned sharp. So the better way to say this is if you start at A4, 440 hertz, and you tune clean octaves, all the notes above A4 will be sharp of equal temperament, because that's what sounds good. And that's called stretch. Now, stretch is not put on a piano. Stretch is a result of you just trying to tune clean octaves. So the inharmonicity means that the higher partials are not in tune with the fundamental. But if you have a different inharmonicity, and harmonicity is a function of the materials, the tension, the speaking length, the diameter, all of those things. And so if you have a string with a different diameter, the inharmonicity will not be the same, and you'll have this situation where the partials don't line up. Like you can get this partial beatless, but this one is not, because they're not lining up. It's a different string. And then when you try to tune so this partial is beatless, now these ones are beating.
Because a thicker string is stiffer, and that affects
It will be. It'll be also at a higher tension, yeah.
Can there also be like different amounts of harmonicity based on like a new string with an old string on the same note?
I don't know.
Okay. Just thinking about like tension and
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because when you break a bass string, one of the options you have is to replace it with what's called a universal string, which comes in certain diameters, but the coil is very long, and you're expected to unwind the coils, and the core of the universal string is hexagonal. And I was told that they do that so that the tone of the string is more like the older string. And I believe that. And then I realized, you know what? That doesn't make any sense. What does make sense is they're using a hexagonal core so that when you unwind it and cut off, the winding won't unwind. It won't keep unwinding. So it's like some strings at the ends where the winding is, it's actually flattened out. You can see if you look at the core, they flatten it out because those windings are going to unwind. Especially the thin strings. I don't use universals anymore because when those thin bichords break and you use a universal, it's going to be buzzing like crazy because those coils you cannot get to stay tight, especially when you're unwinding them. What I do to unwind them is I take vice grips and I just clamp the coil right where I want to break it off, unwind it, and then move it back and forth until it breaks. And at least that way, I'm pretty sure I'm not unwinding the string at the vice grip.
Quick question.
Yep.
I think I recall from you last week about inharmicity with upright pianos versus grand pianos.
Yeah.
Is there the same amount, if any, of inharmicity in grand pianos?
It's okay. Inharmonicity is a function of the string length and the string diameter and the string tension. So a string that has no inharmonicity has 0 diameter, infinite tension, and infinite length. So the grand piano is closer to that than the upright. The upright has shorter strings that are thicker, and that means higher inharmonicity.
I see.
Let me just share with you, because I think you might be interested in this. You could spend a lot of time on this website because it is really very interesting. GoPtools.com. So this is Tremaine Parsons. He's a piano technician and he's created all these cool little things. There's a virtual keyboard for learning equal temperament. But I want you to take a look at this cool thing right here. The scale collection. So if you look here, let's look at the 9-foot concert grand. So you click on that, and what you get is a chart. So this is a chart that shows the inharmonicity of each string from A0 up to C8 and the tension of the strings. So this horizontal graph is the tension, and these lines are the goal. So we want to have the tension between 150 and 200, and in the bass it can go up a little bit. And the reason why it goes up a bit is because we're trying to counteract the fact that we should have much longer bass strings, but we can't because we have space limitations. And that's why the inharmonicity is coming down like this, and then when you get into the bass, it turns, and the inharmonicity gets worse because the strings can't get longer. They're supposed to get longer, but they can't get longer. But you can see as they're getting longer and longer, it's getting towards 0. The inharmonicity is getting towards 0. And 0 inharmonicity is a perfect string. And this hockey stick shape, this is the goal for the inharmonicity coefficients.
Neat.
And so that's your 9-foot grand. Is there any other spinets or something in here? Is Kimball upright? Maybe that one. I don't know much about Kimball, but so you can see what's happening here is, first of all, the hockey stick is not even close. This hockey stick is going all the way down below 0.05. This hockey stick is basically just on 0.1. So the hockey sticks are different. The other thing you notice, though, is the inharmonicity is all over the map right here. That's why the bass octaves are just going to be horrible on this piano. And then the other thing that's really cool about this web page is he actually proves the before and after. When you restring a piano, you can change the diameters. So this is the original stringing, and you can see there's a problem with the inharmonicity. His program tells you got to use a thicker string. Now you've got a higher tension, and the higher tension results in lower inharmonicity. So it just changes the diameter so that you can get more of a consistent inharmonicity. Here's the break, where you go from the tenor section into the bass. So obviously, like completely different strings. These are wound, these ones aren't. And then if we go to the next page, we have this situation where he can play for us the 4-2 and the 6-3 tests. So if you play the 4-2 test, you might not be able to hear this, but these two intervals need to be beating at the same speed to be a pure 4-2. La 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 la. La 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 la. Okay, so those are the same. Major third, la 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 la. Major 10th, la 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 la. Okay, so that's a good 4-2 octave. Now the 6-3. La 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 la. La 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 la. Not the same speed at all. When you play the scaled version, la 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 la. La 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 la. Those are the same, so it's a pure 4-2. La 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 la. La 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 la. Now they're the same speed. So you've got better octaves when you've scaled the piano. So that is a little quick introduction to inharmonicity and how you can change it when you're restringing. I've only completely restrung one piano in my life. It's just not something I'm interested in. I'm interested in tuning. That's why I've done all this work on it. But other people are very interested in that work.
What webpage?
Oh yeah, that's GoPtools. GoPtools.com.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I got one. You talked before about how when you're tuning a unison, the 3 different strings should be at different amounts of tension based on the non-speaking length, right?
The 3 strings in non-speaking length should be at the same tension, basically a little bit tighter than the speaking length. But how to get it there, it will feel different because the long non-speaking length, you'll be able to move the pin more and get the same tension change. The short non-speaking length will be more sensitive to the hammer movement.
Oh, okay, so that's all you meant. Okay.
Yeah.
So what makes a note more likely to stay in tune within the unison?
The non-speaking length tension.
Okay.
That's it.
And that's the same between all the strings, it's just more
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah, the short one's more sensitive. Okay, I took a course once. It was $10,000 and it had a Zoom class, and I was really annoyed that I couldn't get my question answered. So I'm going to go through and point out people who have not asked a question or spoken and give you an opportunity to say something. Nick, I see you got your mic there. You're ready to talk.
questions.
No question?
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
Great course.
Jerry, do you have anything you want to say or ask? How does what? Can you type your question into the chat because your voice is really crackled? Mitya, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Peter, any questions? Peter's not there. I think that's about it. Those are the only people I haven't heard from. Eric, did you get your mic fixed?
Is it working now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, this is on the subject of the business thing. Yes, depending on your country, your state, your county, you probably need a business license and all that stuff. The other thing is liability insurance. Do you carry liability insurance?
No. What could
You
happen?
don't worry about it?
I don't worry about it. What could go wrong?
You're working on a $150,000 Steinway and something goes wrong. The lake
You
pops
could-
out.
you could fix
it. Okay.
Yeah. You could drop a bowling ball in an action and you can fix it. If you're moving pianos, you definitely need it because I had a neighbor who had a moving truck with a hydraulic lift. And when the sun hit the side of the truck, I could see it said so-and-so piano tuning and moving. And I said, hey, dude, where'd you get that truck? He says, I bought it from a piano tuner. I said, that's a pretty cool lift on the back. He says, yeah, he used to move the piano with a flatbed trailer behind his truck. And he had his son on the back holding the piano, and he went around a corner, the piano tipped over and killed his son.
Oh my God.
So then he got this other truck. So piano moving is very dangerous. Okay, Nick, you had a question.
So it's not oral tuning or tuning related. I need to get a second piano to practice with. Do you have any recommends about type or size or style of an upright that I should get to learn and practice on?
Okay, so if you go to my website and you just type in checklist, you get a used piano checklist. This is not completely exhaustive list, but it helps you to rule out some pianos. So you have to answer no to all these. The piano may be worth something if you can answer no to all these questions. For example, is the cabinet ornate? If you say no, if it's a plain cabinet, you got a better chance at having a nice piano. Because if it's an ornate cabinet with lots of carving, it means it was made before 1900. It's so old, it was made before 1900 when they had all kinds of design issues and pianos were not. If you get one that's after 1900 and it's an old piano, you got a better chance. And that's just one category, right? There's a whole bunch of other questions here. So I'll just copy that and put it in the chat.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Any other questions? Here we go. Jerry, how does the course work since it's online? So the online course works by you sending me in recordings and you following the different units right here. If you go to this website and then you click on oral units, you can also do ETD units. You go to the oral units and you just send in recordings, and each class we will go over your recordings and mark them so that you can hear what needs to be improved, and then for the next week you will either send in the next unit, or if you failed that unit, you can work on the one you just did and try to get it better. So that's how it works. That's the tuning part. And other question, should I approach piano technicians around me? Yeah, you should definitely approach piano technicians around you because there's basically two kinds. Very few piano technicians are indifferent to somebody asking them to teach them. You either have people who say, like one guy said, somebody came to my door and asked if I would teach them and I just closed the door in his face. And I figure if he comes back 3 times, then he's serious. Because the number one thing that is lacking in our society is follow through. There's so many people out there who have the idea, hey, I think I'd like to do that, and then they don't follow through. If you're a piano technician, it's a matter of time before you get burnt by one of those people. I did a course, I was giving free lessons in Montreal, and this one guy kept coming back like week after week for a year. And after a year I said, Steve, I can't give you lessons anymore. He says, why not? I said, how many pianos have you tuned in the last year? He says, none. I said, that's why. You're just coming and you're not actually using the information. And then about 2 years later, he calls me up. He says, I'm at a piano recording studio and I need your help because I can't tune the piano. He's at a piano recording studio and he didn't even tune pianos while I was training him. That's the kind of thing that piano technicians are experiencing. So you're going to get those kind of people who don't have anything to do with you. But there is definitely a small core of people that are very hyper focused on helping young people or beginners, helping them. And they will spend a lot of time with you. So you go up and ask and he says, leave me alone. You are never going to be a good piano technician. This is not for you. You don't have what it takes. If somebody says that to you, you just say thank you and you go to the next guy. And you just keep going. You just keep asking different guys. And when people are trying to put you down, you just say, yeah, Mark told me about that kind of guy. I'm going to find the other guy that he talked about. I went to this guy. He had a piano rebuilding facility. Okay? He's giving me a tour. Into the basement we go. The basement is full of pianos. I said, Doug, you need to have an auction to get rid of these pianos or something. He says, okay, you do it. And he gave me the key to his shop. I still have the key to his shop. So there are people out there like that. You just got to find them. I think that's it. Yeah. All right. We've had about an hour, so we'll wrap it up. What I will say to you is that I want to keep doing meetings like this. But obviously I can't do it for free. So look around, watch the messages that you'll get in your email. What I would like to do is continue to do this and charge an amount that is represented by the number of people signed up. Let's say I wanted to make $200 for an hour, which is what I charge for private lessons. If you guys were all members, we'd have 10, it would be $20 each. That's what I want to do. I want to create some kind of membership so that people who want to continue to do these question and answer sessions will be able to do that. And the more people that are involved, more people interested, the less it'll cost. So watch for that. Are there any other questions people might have before we move on? Nothing? All right.
No, it was a good session.
All right, good. Yeah, very good. I love the questions. I love the comments that people have, and it's always very interesting to get all these different people's experiences and perspectives on piano tuning. We need to stick together and help each other out in order to get good at this. It can be very lonely out there trying to get the information that we need, and this just makes it a lot easier. All right, so thanks a lot for attending, and look for your emails for any more information on doing this kind of thing again. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.